Hello, and welcome to another episode of Let's Discuss with Meg Duke. I am your host, once again, Meg Duke. I want to start this episode in case anybody came here and saw umbilical hernias. Great, this chick's going to diagnose me and tell me everything I'm supposed to do. I am not a medical professional. I am here to speak about my personal experience. I will tell you what medical professionals told me about my experience. But I am, once again, I am not a nurse, I am not a doctor, I am not a physician's assistant, I am not a practitioner, I am a social worker and a chemical dependency counselor. That's it. So, don't hop off, stay here and listen to me. But if you were coming here looking for a diagnosis, please call a provider. Same as with all of our voicemails where we have to say, if this is an emergency, please hang up and dial 911. If you're here for a diagnosis, you're in the wrong place. But again, hang out, because we're gonna get to have a chat about it either way. So, yes. So defining the issue here, I always like to start off the podcast with, or any conversations with defining it. So an umbilical hernia is when your intestines actually become displaced and protrude through the wall cavity around the umbilicus, which is obviously your belly button. So this happens a lot to people who are pregnant, but it's not actually specific to people who are pregnant. So I thought that was really interesting as well. Then I also did a Google search because I thought, oh, okay, so then does everybody whose belly button is popped out, does that mean every pregnant person has an umbilical hernia whose belly button pops out? Not everyone's belly button pops out. Mine certainly did with both of my pregnancies. And the answer also there is no, that obviously your body's changing a whole bunch, and just that pressure and that force a lot of times in the second trimester is usually around when it starts to, you'll notice your belly button start to change. And sometimes it can literally just be kind of a change in that pressure coming out. And then sometimes it's literally your dang intestines popping through the cavity around that section. Apparently it's a very common situation, more than 3 million cases in the United States per year. Definitely treatable by a medical professional. Again, I am not one. Definitely, like, it was really interesting the way that mine came up. You can obviously figure out what it is by lab imaging and whatnot, but for me it was really interesting because I was in just for a regular routine, every couple of weeks appointment with my obstetrician, and I pushed my pants down, pull my shirt up. She goes, just the same as she was like, oh, it's raining outside. She goes, oh, you have an umbilical hernia. And then she was like, so let's listen to the baby's heart rate. And I'm like, whoa, 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 whoa. And first of all, I just want to say how much I adore my obstetrician. So it was definitely not like, please don't read her. It was not disrespectful. It was just, I appreciated it because for me, it was like, if it's as casual as you giving me the forecast or the score of the Chiefs game, which no one cares about the Chiefs over here in this house, but I live in Kansas City, so hi. Then it must not be that big of a deal. It's kind of like when they say on an airplane, like, if the flight attendant's not stressed out, then you shouldn't be stressed out. But if the flight attendants are starting to panic, then maybe something's really wrong. So if my doctor's not upset about something and they casually mention something off the cuff, my first reaction is going to be, okay, well, that was really chill, so this must not be a big issue. But then also, like, I'm going to need you to bring it back, though. What is an umbilical hernia? You hear hernia, I think, what, Joey from Friends shoving something back in his stomach and can't lift weights, and anyway, but yeah, apparently she was not concerned about it. Not that big of a deal. So that was my experience. What prompted me to want to do one of my episodes on this was that I've actually had a number of views. So on my personal page, I posted a picture the night before and then right after the surgery, which is also really funny because the picture of me in the surgery right after, I'm kind of, I'm still a little loopy from the anesthesia, so it's pretty funny looking. But, and a lot of people were asking, like, what is an umbilical hernia? Do I have one? Again, I'm not diagnosing you. Don't send me pictures of your stomach. What did it look like? What were your options? How was the surgery? So I'm going to go through all of that with you, just about my own individual experience. But I had a number of people asking. And so I know some of you might be like, oh, well, I'm never going to get pregnant, or I don't want to, I'm not, whatever it might be. But it's still kind of an interesting topic, and also apparently can happen if you don't have a baby. So hang around. Yes. So for me, my doctor she was saying, obviously that's what it is. It's an umbilical hernia. Asked me if there was any pain when I asked her to have a little more of a discussion. And for me, the pain got worse as I got bigger. Obviously, there's more pressure against it, so that was more opportunity for it to hurt more. The biggest issue for me this go around was that I had a 2-year-old which what a wonderful problem to have, and I'm using air quotes for those in the podcast, who loves to sit in my lap and read books, which is just the most majestic thing ever, except when you've got an umbilical hernia that's poking out, and then he somehow magically, like a magnet, gets sucked right to that spot when he would jump in my lap. So, which was fine, but that would obviously cause it to be a little more painful. So, that was an issue for me. But like I said, the pain really ebbed and flowed. I would say that it definitely, it felt like it got bigger, and the pain got worse as I got bigger. But after I gave birth, it definitely got a lot less. But again, sweet little buddy loves to jump in my lap, and even then it would still kind of hurt a little bit. And I had met my insurance deductible, so I was like, why not? Why not go ahead and get this taken care of now while I don't have to pay for it? Well, yeah, I don't have to pay for it since I've met my out of pocket max, and giving birth obviously in the hospital was expensive, so let's go for that. Yeah, so the next thing that I did was to schedule a consultation with a surgeon, and my obstetrician is good duties with a surgeon who does this, like a conveyor belt basically. So I went over and met with him. Very simple. I met with a med student as well. Even the med student was like, "Oh yeah, I know what that is. That's yeah. Oh yeah, you're a perfect candidate for surgery. Da, da, da. Let me go get the doctor." Doctor comes in, same thing. "Oh, perfect candidate for surgery. I've seen this 1,000 times. Everything looks great." He kindly laughed at my joke about plastic surgery, like, "Can you do anything else while you're in there? Ha ha. No, my plastic surgery buddies live next door. You can go talk to them, but they won't talk to you for 6 months. Ha ha." Anyway, no one has time or money over here for plastic surgery. But I was like, hey, if you're already in there, maybe you can tighten some things up. No. He was kind and politely chuckled, but no, got a hard pass on that. So, yeah, so obviously, some of the other things that he talked about with me were making sure, was I planning on having any more children, which we had decided we were going to have 2. I had a tubal ligation while I had my second C-section, so we are shut down for business intentionally. So that's definitely something to consider. If you're planning on popping out more children, they're not going to want to do at least hernia repair with mesh, which I will get to what that is in a minute, because that mesh obviously is going to have to expand again when your stomach expands. So for me, that was not an issue. And then of course, making sure I was a certain number of weeks post-op from my C-section, from having the baby, making sure that there were people to be able to take care of the children. Obviously, my son weighs 30-something pounds, and if I've just had surgery, I can't be picking him up, but who's going to put him into a car seat? So making sure that my husband was home. Also making sure my husband would be able to be home to pick me up from surgery. In the aforementioned conversation about my after picture where I look very loopy from the anesthesia, could not have been able to drive myself home. So, yeah, so we got all of that scheduled. Everything looked good. I actually was going to have it done during my maternity leave. My husband took a day off of PTO. And then the night before, my son got RSV. So I'm sure anybody who has children can relate to RSV going around daycares and schools and whatnot. So we had to cancel at, I called it like 7 p.m. It was a Sunday. And I had to call and cancel and say, sorry, I can't make it in. So then we pushed it back a couple more weeks into between when I stopped my full-time job and started my private practice full-time. I actually had taken that Friday off anyway. So just for a little mini relaxation time, I took that Thursday and Friday off. I went in and had it done that Friday, which the day before on Thursday, I had a gift certificate for my birthday for surgery, for a massage. And I am the kind of person, if I'm going for a massage, I want deep tissue. And she's like, jabbing that elbow in there. No, she didn't use her elbows. Again, also not a massage therapist. So if I'm saying something that's wrong with the massage therapists of the world are like, we don't use our elbows. I don't know. Do you not use your elbows? It feels like it. Sometimes I just really feel like they're in there. Bad idea to do that day before surgery because my entire upper part of my body the next day was so sore, which normally would be a great thing because that meant she got all the kinks out, but not a good idea when you have to move around in pain the next day from a surgery. So life lesson learned there. Also a first world problem because not like I get massages all the time. I get like maybe 2 a year, but anyway. Yes. So the day of the surgery, was very easy. I had a very early call time, which was great because I'm always hungry anyway, especially with pumping. So that was a big concern of mine. They had talked about getting me in. They're like, oh, we've got a 3 o'clock on da 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 day. And I was like, I will not survive if I have to not eat from whatever. No, I will not survive until 3 o'clock. So fortunately, I was able to get in early and get there. And of course, with COVID protocol, everyone was wearing masks. I was wearing a mask the whole time up until they wheeled me into the hospital room. Now, you know what? It's funny because I know they pumped me with meds as they rolled me back. Did I take off my mask? I don't even remember. Did I leave it on? I know I took off my mask during my C-section because I got nauseated from the blocker and they let me take my mask off. But I can't honestly remember now. So that's not really a good story. But everybody else was very concerned and cautious about COVID protocols. It was very simple. It was an outpatient procedure. I went in that morning. I even took my breast pump. Everyone was very kind and respectful. They're like, do you just wait out here? I'm like, you're all medical professionals. You've seen more than this. It doesn't matter. But everyone was very kind and respectful. So I was able to pump that morning in the hospital or in the surgical center. Not even really a hospital. Headed back. Like I said, they pumped me full of something on the way back, and I remember being very chatty, and my anesthesiologist used to live on the Upper West Side of New York, and I always live on the Upper West Side of New York, so we were talking about that, and some exhibit at the MoMA back in 2009, which is when I lived there, and I was disappointed that I missed it, and then I remember waking up in post-op. So, yeah, so what the surgery that I had was umbilical hernia with mesh repair. And if you have a squeamish stomach, first of all, what I'm going to say is you don't need to skip anything right now. I'm not going to say or show you anything that's gross, but I'm just going to say if you're curious, the second thing that pops up is images. So just be prepared for that if you want to do some Googling on your own, because I'm looking at some pictures right now and they're a little graphic, but I try to pretend like I have a strong stomach and maybe one day could be a surgeon. No. Yes. So there are apparently 2 ways to repair. Obviously, one of the things that you can do with umbilical hernia is just leave it and just be fine. There's a suture repair, and then there is a repair with mesh. And I went with the one with mesh because that was what was recommended to me, because as I have said many times and will continue to say, just so that no one gets confused, I'm not a medical provider. So for me to have a suggestion or any input on this would have been insane because I don't know what I'm talking about. But they do. I actually read an article about the difference between mesh versus suture repair of umbilical hernias in like a random double-blind controlled multi-center trial. And somebody had actually done the research on that. So they say that, if the hernia is smaller than 1 to 4 centimeters, mesh repair should be suggested. So again, that's not my information. It was what was suggested to me by my provider, and it certainly was what was suggested by this one piece of research that I have read. In my next life, I want to be a researcher, maybe get my PhD in social work and do some research. Those were 2 of my favorite classes in grad school. So anyway, yeah. So that's what it says here. That's what I went with. That was my obstetrician's suggestion. She has good faith in this fella. He was just so lovely the day of and very helpful. His office was wonderful. Obviously, that's going to be very situational based on where you go. But I was just really excited to see, it was so commonplace for them. It wasn't anything to be stressed out about. Like I said, if they're not panicked, I'm not panicked. But I was excited to be able to have the opportunity to have insurance, to be able to have these conversations, to have options, to have things to be able to take care of it. And now it's really nice because, I'm still in that post-operative space. I haven't been fully cleared. So I was surprised by that. Actually, if I can quickly be tangential within my own wrap up here, was that it's supposed to be like a 6-week recovery, which is pretty crazy, which is the same as for a C-section. So it's definitely, not the same as laparoscopic, but for some reason, I guess an abundance of caution. When I was talking to the med student for my first follow-up, he was like, oh yeah, it's supposed to be like 6 weeks. So I think I'm going to be released in another week and a half, which would only be a 4-week cover-up, follow-up. But yeah, so hopefully looking forward to having my 2-year-old smash into my stomach and not have it hurt anymore. It does look, selfishly, it does also look a little better than it did. It looked kind of weird before, but I don't know. I kind of saw that as like my tiger stripes, like I said, you all know that I identify as a woman and I identify as a mom. My son calls me mama, so those were like my mama marks. So it wasn't the end of the world for me to have those marks there, but it does admittedly it looks a little better. So a little secondary gain there as well. Yeah, so I hope I've answered all the questions. I've got my little list of questions over here that people have asked me about. That's all my experience. That's what it is. That's what it was. That's what I did to deal with mine. It's not a big deal, but like I said, lucky to be able to have insurance and be able to be provided for in that situation and get that taken care of. So if you have any other questions, you're always welcome to shoot me an email, shoot me a message on my Instagram account, leave a message in the comments here. I'd be happy to give any more information that I can. Of course, as I've said so many times and will continue to say, is to reach out to your provider, to your obstetrician or your primary care physician if this is not a pregnancy related issue for you, and they'll hopefully be able to get you in touch with a surgeon if they feel like that's what the next step is. That happened to be the next step for me. So something that my executive producer is going to be proud of me for remembering to say is thank you so much for taking the time to listen to this story. Make sure that you like, rate, and subscribe to my podcast and my YouTube channel. I'm really excited to be able to bring all of this to you. This topic wasn't as sexy as gratitude virtue signaling, I'm sure. Some of you were like, oh my gosh, I do not care about umbilical hernias, but some of you really do. So that's why I'm here. And I have some really great guests lined up coming up in the next couple of weeks, and I'm really looking forward to being able to share other people's voices as well as my own and my own experiences and see where we're going to go together. So everyone have a great one. Thank you so much for taking the time to listen about umbilical hernias, and I'll see you next time on Let's Discuss.